Welcome to Holy Kool-Aid Live. I am joined today with a very special guest, Telltale Atheist. Many of you have seen his YouTube channel. He does drawings, and they're very artistic, but he talks about his past as a Jehovah's Witness and how he came out of that and his experience, how he was shunned, some of the horrific things that he has experienced, as well as his work to try to fight against different cult-like tactics that are used by other religions and expose it, act almost as a watchdog for some of these organizations. Welcome to the show, Telltale.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully we can have a pretty good discussion.
Yeah, I think we will. Normally what we do in these situations, I do once a month, I'll have a conversation with a special guest and talk to them for about 25 minutes or so, kind of get a feel for what the topic of the show is going to be. And then at that point, I'll open it up so that my patrons, anyone who's pledged on Patreon, can come in and join us. Also, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. So if there are any super chats, we will get to your questions no matter what. And if you're a patron, if you're not a patron, you can become one, and then I'll post the link there in about 25 minutes for you guys to join. First off, though, I wanted to hear a little bit about your story. I've been watching through your videos, and we actually met in person at the Faithless Forum this last about a week and a half ago, two weekends ago, and it was really amazing getting to meet you. But there, you had a panel that you talked about kind of your experience coming out and some of the harm that religion has caused. You want to talk a little bit about Faithless Forum and tell us what you thought of the conference?
Yeah, I can do that. Faithless Forum was awesome, by the way. I'm sure you probably feel the same way, but it was awesome. I mean, I showed up there. I was in the hotel room, and next thing I know, we've got these YouTubers showing up, and we're all in this room together discussing, how the forum's going to go, what we're going to do. It was just incredible. Just the whole thing was incredible. So I was really happy with that. I can't wait for Faithless Forum 2. But aside from that, I figured I'd give you a little information on my story. I grew up Jehovah's Witness and didn't really realize that it was a cult until way later on, or even an oppressive religion, just plain oppressive religion. Until I was 21 or 22. I mean, I found my way out of it. I got kicked out when I was 18, but I still believed it for a few years after that. A lot of people usually want to ask me why I got kicked out. And the reason is basically I grew up and I was kind of isolated from society a little bit because that's their thing. You're not supposed to associate with non-Jehovah's Witnesses. So I was isolated through my teen years. And when I turned 18, I just went off the rails and just got a worldly girlfriend that wasn't Jehovah's Witness. I, decided to smoke a cigarette and drink alcohol and just kind of, did a lot of bad stuff. But I mean, it wasn't even really that bad. It was just kind of what normal people do. Normal people drink alcohol and normal people have girlfriends, It was bad in Jehovah's Witnesses' eyes. And so anyway, they ended up kicking me out when I was 18 for moderately bad things. And yeah, here I am today. After 3 years of that, I finally broke the chains of belief. And now we're 8 years into me breaking the chains of belief, and I feel like I'm in a lot better place than I was then.
So you still have your mother is a Jehovah's Witness, and she won't communicate with you anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, interestingly enough, I have 3 siblings and then a mother and a father. Okay. And my first brother to leave, my oldest brother, he was the first to get kicked out of the religion. I was like 11 years old or something like that. And then it was me. I got kicked out, and I was being shunned by my other brother, my sister, my mother, and my father. And eventually we all fell. The very last person in is my mother. My father is actually on the outside too, but I don't talk to him for other reasons we won't get into. But yeah, my mother is the very last one shunning me, and I suspect she'll probably never talk to me again. So,
well, I'm sorry to hear that, and that's a fairly common thing within Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Where they're encouraged to, I think encouraged would be an understatement, to disfellowship, when you disfellowship a member, to just completely shun them, even if they're family, and not talk with them, not associate with them.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of an interesting point you bring up, because there are some really unique rules about shunning. So there's this legal thing where they aren't legally allowed to tell people to shun their family members, or they're breaking human rights in a bunch of U.S. laws. So they cannot disfellowship you for talking to family members who are disfellowshipped, but they will disfellowship you for talking to friends who are disfellowshipped. So they heavily stigmatize talking to disfellowshipped family to the point where nobody even realizes that they're not allowed to disfellowship you for that.
So they're not allowed to tell you to disfellowship or to shun someone, but if you talk to someone, then you get kicked out of the church.
That's right. So they will disfellowship you if you talk to a disfellowshipped friend, but they can't legally disfellowship you for talking to disfellowshipped family members.
Okay, so just friends, not family, but it's still
right. It's treated the same. Nobody even realizes that there's that difference there. Everyone just thinks you'll be disfellowshipped no matter what. So it's pretty intense pressure for sure.
Now, also with Jehovah's Witnesses, they have a very strong aversion to any kind of government interaction. And so, you mentioned before that there's a massive child sex abuse cover-up. And that I don't know if this is still going on, but like the U.S. government was suing, there was a class action lawsuit against the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were being fined like $4,000 a day because they didn't want to give up the names of child rapists.
That's right. Yeah.
Still going on, or what happened with that?
It is. Yes, that is still going on. $4,000 a day currently
for over a year.
I'm surprised they haven't, cracked down already. But basically, the bottom line with that whole thing is, anytime there's an incident, okay, they don't want the government involved at all. They like Jehovah's Witnesses. They like to think of themselves as a government. They want people to view them as a theocracy, right? If they could live on an island with the governing body at the head of the government as a theocracy, they would do that. But so what they do is they refuse to involve the government in anything. They don't want the police called. They don't want anything. They just want to keep everything internal, and everything that they do as far as punitive measures, like it's all based on the Bible. Like, for example, they have the 2-witness rule. And the 2-witness rule, just to summarize, basically, there have to be 2 victims or 2 witnesses. So if there's a sex abuse case, you have, and it's just one person saying, hey, this person molested me, they don't do anything. And they actively tell members not to report it to the police. In fact, an elder was just disfellowshipped in Ireland for reporting a sex abuse case to the police.
Wow. So even if you have like a rape kit and like DNA evidence and bruises and marks and every other piece of evidence, you still have to have 2 witnesses even to report it.
Yep. And if you have that information, if you have the rape kit and everything, it means you reported it to the secular authorities, or that you wouldn't have gotten that stuff. And somebody's probably going to get in trouble for it. So absolutely no communication with police, and there have to be 2 victims before they do anything about it. So, and that, like I said, that's a biblical rule that has its roots in the Bible. So.
Yeah. What other things with Jehovah's Witnesses? Is it it's JWs that won't do blood transfusions, right?
Yeah, they won't do that.
Why
because
is that? Why do they turn down modern
medicine?
Is it all modern medicine, like with Christian Scientists, or is it just blood transfusions?
Well, it's just blood transfusions mostly, but you'd actually be surprised how much modern medicine uses blood or blood fractions in some way. Of course, they've opened up a little bit to that, so they're a little more willing to. They've called it a conscience matter. So if you want to take a medicine that is made with blood fractions, like if somebody uses plasma to make a medicine, they'll say it's a conscience matter, and they're not going to disfellowship you, but they'll heavily stigmatize it. And it's all based on this verse in the Old Testament about eating blood. You're not supposed to eat blood. And last I checked, that's very different from a life-saving procedure of transfusing blood. God only demanded human sacrifice twice in the Bible, once with Jephthah and once with Jesus, if you call that a human sacrifice. Those are the only two instances of it. But they want people to sacrifice their lives for God, essentially.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. And this really, like, whenever I hear about this, or the Christian scientists who will just deny medicine across the board in favor of faith healing, or there's like some different Protestant denominations, particularly in Idaho, that will deny their kids medicine, and it's homicide. It's faith healing homicide via neglect. You have children and elderly who are either discouraged from taking medicine or not given even the option. I was talking to a medical doctor in Dallas, Texas, who he was a Muslim. He got his MD from UT Austin, and he was extremely like liberal and stuff, but he was like, I do have people, Jehovah's Witnesses, come in who need blood transfusions in order to live. And in those cases, we try to isolate them from their family members because there's so much pressure and there's so much stress. And usually when you get them alone and you actually ask them, do you want it? We can, keep it on the down low. It will save your life. Almost invariably, they're like, yes, just please keep me alive.
So, yeah, interestingly enough, on that note, actually, Jehovah's Witnesses have what's called the, oh man, I'm gonna butcher the name. I think it's called the Hospital Liaison Committee, HLC. And it's basically a group of elders whose job it is to go around to hospitals and talk to, find Jehovah's Witness patients and talk to their doctors for them and tell them that they don't want blood transfusions. It's like sick. They've got a group of enforcers going around telling doctors what these patients want. So,
yeah. And for anyone who might say like, oh, it's just natural selection, let it take its course. It's like, it's not just affecting, someone who wants to believe that for themselves. It's being enforced by an external group, as well as on children who don't even have the option to really make that choice.
Yeah, that's for sure. I remember when I was younger, I think I was probably 13 years old. My dad had a lot of heart problems. He ended up eventually having quadruple bypass surgery. He had stents at various times, and he refused to take a blood transfusion at any point through any of it. I was convinced he was going to die. I was convinced of it, but I had, I guess you could say I took solace in the fact that I'd see him in the new system, right? So I really wasn't even broken up about it because I knew I'd see him again. But yeah, eventually he ended up getting the bypasses and everything. There was one doctor he was basically the only doctor who would do surgery on him with no blood. We had to look for this guy forever. He's expensive, but yeah, I mean, it's a serious problem.
Wow. Yeah, that's insane. Because if you're a medical doctor, you're probably concerned that, even if you're allowing this religious exemption, you're still you're still liable for malpractice suits. If the patient dies on your hands, right?
Yeah, because it seems like a medical necessity. I don't know about my state of West Virginia. That's where we lived when it happened. But yeah, it's a medical necessity sometimes, blood transfusion. And I would say that could be considered malpractice, not giving a patient blood when they needed it like that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's risky to do any kind. No doctor wants a patient to die on their table. I can't even imagine the kind of guilt, and it's just a higher risk. So,
well, especially if there's something that could have been done to save someone's life. Like if they die from lack of blood and you have the blood that they need right there sitting in a pack waiting to, sure. It's insane. But in addition to that, though, there was you went through a video on your channel that had, it was like a cult checklist, different things that make a cult a cult. And, what were some of the items in that list that almost line by line Jehovah's Witnesses matched the criteria?
Yeah. So basically, what I did was I picked out 3 or 4 religions: Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, things like that, the big ones. And I tried to make note of the things that I see in them. And then I tried to find that type of behavior in other beliefs and other things like Android versus iPhone or Mercedes versus this or that. So here's the bottom line. I mean, well, let me just put it this way. If they proselytize and they can't stop themselves from proselytizing, if the group tells them to proselytize, if they're told to lie for the church, something I call theocratic warfare. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's it would be manipulating and lying and cheating and doing anything it takes, even stealing, in service of the church. Things like that. Those are the kinds of things that I look for when I'm looking at a religion and deciding whether or not it's a cult. But a lot of these things do apply to Android versus iPhone or Mercedes versus BMW, because it's a mindset. Even if it's not an actual cult, it's a state of mind that people find themselves in. Like flat Earth or young Earth creationism may not directly be cults, but it's really about the mindset. So
Wait, so are you saying that you would call Apple a cult?
Look, okay, here's the thing about that. Okay, I like Apple products, but I work with a guy who hates Apple, and he is the biggest Android fanboy I've ever seen in my life, to the point where he is lying about it just to get a point across. So,
but I think you'd be hard pressed to show that like Android themselves use cult like manipulation tactics and tell people to
no, definitely not. Apple and Android. I don't think it's about
isolate them.
I don't think it's about the company. I think it's about the level of fanaticism of the people who like these things. It's the mindset. I wouldn't call those things a cult.
Okay, so you're making a distinction, I guess, between a cult following and an actual cult organization.
I would say I'm making a distinction between a cult with a hierarchy that strictly enforces their rules with social consequences, and just a mindset of fanaticism to a cult-like level. Right? So I don't think I'd call Flat Earth a cult, but I would call it a cult-like mindset, because there's no rigid hierarchical structure who's going to tell you to shun your family members if they don't believe it. That's a choice that you make if you believe it, right? So that's a cult-like mindset, but there is no cult backing it necessarily.
I gotcha.
Is that a fair assessment?
One of the things that you mentioned in that list was, using deception in order to push the belief. And you had an experience with your own mother where your daughter, you were letting her see her grandmother, and yet your mom was lying to you about taking her to Jehovah's Witnesses meetings. And what was her justification for that, to lie to her own son?
So I really didn't so my mother told me that I was the one that ended the relationship by getting disfellowshipped. I was the one that was refusing to communicate with her, but every time I call her, she doesn't answer the phone, right? So she flipped it around, and I've noticed a lot of extremist Christians do that too, right? They'll flip it around and they'll turn themselves into the victim and you into the perpetrator.
Yeah, you said she deleted an email from you and called it apostate propaganda.
Yeah, she did. She refuses to speak to me at all at this point. But so what happened was, for a while there, I was talking to her like every couple of months, right? And I have family up in the north where she lives, like, that aren't Jehovah's Witnesses. So I go there occasionally. Once every few years, I'll go and I'll see like my grandma and my aunts and uncles and stuff. And so I go there, probably 2 years ago, and I was bringing my daughter there to see my mom. And my mom allowed me to stay in her house one night, right? So I'm sleeping on the floor, and I wake up one morning, and I hear my mom talking to my daughter, Kylie, about Jehovah's Witnesses and reading this magazine to her, like one of the Jehovah's Witness magazines.
How old was your daughter at the time?
Oh, she's 9 now, so she's about 7. Yeah, she's about 7. So she's reading her one of these magazines, and of course, the magazine is just propaganda through and through. It's just garbage. And they're showing in a picture in this magazine of these okay, I thought I got disconnected for a second. Anyway, so
I couldn't hear you, but I wasn't sure if it was on my end or yours.
Okay. Well, anyways, so in this magazine, they're showing pictures of these necklaces that are worshipped as gods in this tribe somewhere in Africa or something, right? And my mom is pointing out to my daughter, look, isn't that strange? Like, these people worship necklaces as gods. Like, isn't that weird? We know who God is, right? It's Jehovah. And of course, I'm laying on the floor hearing this. They don't realize I'm awake. And that's when I realized that she would have never said something like that if I was in the room and awake. So I stood up and I said, do you know the difference, though, between those gods and Grandma's God? And she said, what? And I said, you can actually touch and see and feel their God, and you know that that God is real. I guess I was kind of lashing out at the time, but it really got to me that she was doing that. And then I find out when I come home with Kylie that my mom had been bringing her to meetings. Kylie wanted to get baptized as Jehovah's Witness and all of this other stuff. And that's about the point where I drew the line and said, I cannot send her anymore. I've done everything I could, given so much slack to my mother. I just can't do it anymore.
So. Especially at that age, it's like she doesn't know what she's getting into.
Yeah. She doesn't understand the ramifications of the whole situation, which is disappointing because Jehovah's Witnesses really push kids to get baptized earlier and earlier. I got baptized at 14, but I know people who are baptized at 8 years old. And is that really old enough to make a decision so serious that it will affect the rest of your life?
Yeah. I was baptized at 7, but not as a Jehovah's Witness.
I'm sure it was pretty extreme, though. Like, what came along with that? I assume you had shunning and stuff too when you came out, right?
My family's they're weird because they're conservative, but they're extremely kind of open-minded, cosmopolitan, just because they're so well traveled and they've seen so many other religions and so many other ideas and beliefs, and like so they do tend to be more, they practice a gospel of love and whatnot. But there is this overarching shadow of disappointment that accompanies me every single time that I go home or that I see them. There's just this tinge of sadness that you can tell whenever they're talking to me. And it's a bit annoying because I never bring up religion, and they always have it as kind of this side thing that they'll talk to someone else about how wonderful God is just loud enough that they kind of can tell that I'm listening or that I can hear it. And it becomes a little much sometimes, but I mean, to them, it's they eat, sleep, and breathe religion. So when I start talking to them about like, oh yeah, I just broke 40,000 subscribers or something, then they're disappointed because they know that my channel is not, it's anti-religious. So
yeah, that's very interesting. This is what I was saying before. My success is the Watchtower Society's failure and vice versa. My failure would be their success. So I'm glad that both of us are doing it as well as we are. Prove them wrong.
Yeah. Well, and when people go to, if they're not sure about Jehovah's Witnesses and they hear someone say it's a cult and they go to YouTube and they type that in the search bar, are Jehovah's Witnesses a cult? Your videos are the first ones that are going to pop up. and they're going to get that insider perspective. They're going to get to see it. And I think that if you weren't making these videos and you didn't have this, these storytelling capabilities that you have, then there's probably a lot of people who you've saved from going into the Jehovah's Witnesses, not to mention those that are already in it that are, that get out thanks to you.
I appreciate that. And actually, I feel like I have to plug one person because he is the one that really got me interested in doing Jehovah's Witness material specifically. And that's the John Cedars channel, Lloyd Evans. You know Lloyd.
Yeah.
Really, really good guy. I've been watching for a long time, and our formats are just a little bit different, mine and Lloyd's, where his is a lot more fact-based and mine is a little more opinion-based. But he has spent, I don't even know how many hours, countless hours on research. He knows this material inside and out better than I think I ever could. So I have to credit him for encouraging me in the right direction and really launching my channel. Did he start his
channel first?
Oh yeah, I think he's been doing his since 2013. I could be wrong there. Mine's only been since 2016. So
okay. Well, I'm about to open this up to the patrons to join in the conversation. So if anyone is a patron of Holy Koolaid at any level, I'll post a link there that only patrons can view, and it's a link to come join this conversation. And then that way anyone who wants to join. While I'm doing that though, Telltale, why don't you tell us a little bit about after you left? You went through a phase kind of a very depressed, I call it post-deconversion depression, when I see people leave a religion and there's kind of this down phase of I just lost my friends, my family, they're shunning me, I'm pushed out, like I'm trying to find meaning, trying to figure things out. Sometimes you're trying to find a place to live. You were
sure.
You even when you got kicked out, you were staying with a girl that you didn't even have a home, and so you stayed with her for 3 weeks without her parents knowing what climbing through the windows.
Yeah, that's right. When I left the religion, I ended up, I got kicked out on my 18th birthday. I left, and there was a girl I knew from high school, and interestingly enough, maybe she'll pop in, but anyway, she's trying to pop in. There was a little bit of lag there for a second. Hang on. This is the girl you were talking about right there. That's her.
Oh, awesome.
Anyway, it's our 10th anniversary. I mean, we've been separated for years now, but we're still good friends. Anyway, like I was saying, the story. Awesome. She, I crawled in her window and lived in her bedroom for 3 weeks, had nowhere else to go. And eventually I had a job at Burger King, and she ended up getting a job there too. We were still going to high school. I was in 11th grade. She was in 10th. And so we end up getting, I got a roommate. I started staying at this friend's trailer, and I was staying with her after that. And I was just so torn up about everything. I had to drop out of school. I had no choice. I could not continue to go to school and support myself. So I ended up dropping out of high school and just going downhill pretty hard after that. I ended up getting into drugs, which I would not recommend to anybody. It took me a couple of years to get out of it, but eventually I started straightening things out, and it just got better and better, and here I am today. So I am really lucky to be where I am after all that.
We got Surus in the chat.
How's it going?
I just posted, by the way, I just posted it to Patreon. So anyone who's looking to join, we've got a link to join the conversation. If you have questions that you want to Telltale to answer, you can either post them in the live stream. Any super chats we will make sure that we get to no matter what. We'll try to get to other questions if there's dead air, but if you want to talk actually in the stream, patrons are able to join. So it kind of in response to that real quick though, Telltale, it sounds like you did manage to overcome a lot of the depression. You managed to really find not just a sustainable income, but also deal with the frustration and the depression. And now you have a community. You have a really strong community here with others, secular activists and whatnot, as was demonstrated through Faithless Forum. So, you know, what would you tell anyone who's kind of dealing with that depression state, who feels a little hopeless right now?
I think that there came a point in time where I moved through, what are the 5 stages of grief? They're denial. Wait a minute. Wait. I'll get it. I got to remember for a second. I took psychology classes here. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, right? So yes, I went through, I went through the denial. I went through the anger, and I even went through the bargaining. I did it. I tried to go back to the meetings and everything. Eventually I did hit the depression. I didn't come out of that for a long time, but eventually when I came out the other side, I just wanted to fight so hard to prevent this from happening to anybody else. It's just the strongest sense of responsibility to help others come out the other side. And along with that comes community. You have to have community. It is so important. I found community. I found family in my daughter's family. They took me in like their own kid and cared about me. And I was so lucky with that after my family, you know, kind of threw me out. But it's so important to have a support network, really. You have to get a support network and to do everything you can to help others find their way out.
Yeah, so it sounds like you got a lot of purpose from helping others in similar situations.
Definitely.
I would say definitely, yeah.
Welcome. We have Captain Brony as well as
just Cap. Just
Cap Brony.
Yeah.
Cirrus, your mic is a little bit quiet.
Better?
A little bit better. Do either of you have any questions for Telltale?
I had one. I know that...
Okay.
Or, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say you can go ahead since you were actually in here before me, so...
Okay. I was going to say, it seems like, because I know earlier, I wasn't able to catch the entire conversation, but earlier the idea of Flat Earth being a cult was discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Steve McClures were actually talking about this, I think about 3 or 4 days ago on live stream, somewhere around there. And it seemed that all the check boxes were hit. So I think it's, in my opinion, it seems like it might be on the verge of becoming a cult. Like it doesn't have an actual leader, but it seems like it's not very far off from being able to have one. Do you think that's
interesting?
Yeah, in the next...
Well, I actually talked to Steve McRae on Twitter about this. He tweeted at me, I think, or somebody tweeted at me about it. Anyway, I did. Yeah, I saw all of those check boxes and everything. And yeah, I would say that it does hit those check boxes just like a cult would. But there isn't a group of people at the top who is...
Yeah, there's
forcing people to shun family. Yeah, there isn't a group at the top forcing people to shun family members or enforcing the rules in general. It's kind of a self-enforced mindset. I mean, there is a loose structure to it. There are leaders in the in that community, but I really feel like it's more of a cult-like mindset, which can be worse than a cult.
I mean, it could be worse because it feels like there's no area to really attack. Like there's no angle except just going, there's this idea, and we can barely even call it an idea. Like with Christianity, even certain sects, you can pretty much just go, oh yes, we have this idea, and we have this book, and we have like so many different angles you can attack it from. But when it comes to flat earthers,
that's true. And I was just thinking about this in another context. So I was wondering if young Earth creationism is a cult, and I don't think it is. I think it.
Actually, that's where when me and Steve McRae were talking about this on the live hangout, he actually expanded the thing to young Earth creationism in that chat.
Huh? Yeah. That's funny.
So
I would say
that's actually live on his channel. You can check.
I've got to go watch that. Yeah, I didn't even realize. I think I feel the same way about young Earth creationism as I do about Flat Earth, where it's a cult-like mindset, but not a specific cult, even though I think that it has more of a hierarchical structure than Flat Earth does, what with Ken Ham, Answers in Genesis, and Kent Hovind and stuff. So,
real quick, we got a $5 super chat from Lord Renolfer. We got a $5 super chat from Lord Renolfer, and he says that he's only been acquainted with a few Jehovah's Witnesses. This should be enlightening. So thank you so much for the super chat.
Sure.
What were you guys saying?
What was that?
I was asking what the chat was because I couldn't actually read it. My phone's in my pocket, so I'm basically.
Oh, the super chat, right? Somebody said that they didn't really know any Jehovah's Witnesses, not very many, so it'd be interesting, right?
Well, we've got Telltale. We also have, you were just talking about John Cedars or Lloyd Evans. I'm not sure which one is his.
There's also not Jehovah Witness as well. I don't know if he's watching.
Yeah, he is. I was talking with him. I had a few comments with him, but I was gonna tell something. Then I had a question for him. But first thing I was gonna say is thank you for all that you do. I have learned a lot of. I've always kind of been interested in cults. Like my mom always loved like crime shows, and so the first time I heard about a cult was either Waco or Jonestown. Isn't Jonestown the Koolaid people?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's them.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Never drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Plugging in your tagline.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. And so you talking on the cults always I found interesting, and actually I found you in a really odd way. It was actually from Telltale games. So
yeah. A lot of people said that. That's so funny. Well, it's a good accident.
Oh. Yeah, I'm happy I did because I've learned a lot from you and I've really enjoyed your videos. Actually, I guess I have two questions. One was, do you do all the artwork on your videos?
I do, actually. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off camera here for a second. I'm trying to plug my laptop in. But yeah, I do. I do all of the artwork for it. But I don't know. I don't really consider myself an artist. Like, I know that I do some pretty art sometimes and stuff, but I feel like calling myself an artist is like taking away from people who do some really, really amazing stuff. Although I guess you could call my videos art, so there's that.
Yeah, I think really, really good. I'm always just amazed by how good they always look. It's always fun to watch.
I appreciate.
Start with one little.
Yeah,
you start with the one little part, and then I always like trying to guess what it is before I actually see it. That's fun.
I want to give a disclaimer with it though first because I feel like it's important. I got to say that I usually just pick them up off of drawing tutorials like dragoart.com or something. It's not like I'm drawing this stuff custom. I'm finding tutorials and then drawing it. So anyway,
well, they're still really good, better than I can do. And the other question
I can do as well.
Yeah, the other question I had for you was, what is the most dangerous practice that the JWs and other quote-unquote religious cults have?
The most dangerous practice. Interesting. I'd say the most dangerous is in it kills the most people is probably or seriously mentally scars them. No, actually I'm going to go with the 2 witness rule. I think it's the 2 witness rule, but if I could pick one of their doctrines to get rid of, I think I would pick the shunning one, because if we could get rid of the shunning doctrine, you guys still hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. If we could get rid of the shunning doctrine, people could quote unquote vote with their feet, and I don't think we'd see much of Jehovah's Witnesses after that. So
yeah.
Real quick, I wanted to welcome Sharni to the hangout. I'm trying to. I briefly muted you because we were getting a little bit of background noise, and now it's not letting me unmute. I think you can on your end, but
is that where the video game sounds were coming from?
Actually, hang on. She should be unmuted now, I think. There we go. Maybe not. Maybe so.
Yeah, I was just. I was going to say, I guess, since we don't just dead air, I'll say something.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, when you said the 2 witness rule for the for the molesting thing, that that really almost set me off because it's.
Yeah.
I had that. Oh,
Like,
yeah,
hey,
we can hear you.
I'll let her talk now.
Right. Yeah, never mind. Yep. Hi. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I muted you briefly because we were getting a fair amount of background noise, but then it wouldn't let me unmute you after Telltale stopped talking, so I apologize.
Can you hear me or not?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
She can hear us, right?
Oh, she should be able to. We can hear you. I think there's some delay because she's from Australia, I believe.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, there might be just a lot of end.
Yeah.
Could be. So you were saying...
there appears to be a delay in the chat for me.
Okay.
Which is a little bit strange, but...
Well, do you have any questions for Telltale while we have you on? Or anything that you would like to say to him?
Yeah, there's delay in the chat. Anyway, this just got my attention because I actually have history with the witnesses.
Oh yeah, interesting. What is your history with them? Long delay.
Like a really long delay.
Yeah.
We're currently using a really even travel. Might not be a delay if you type directly to her in the Google Hangouts. So you might want to try that.
I'm typing it, but I don't know if she can see it.
Yeah, she was on her phone.
My history with the witnesses is that I once knew one of their elders back in Adelaide, Australia. Unfortunately, I also knew his son, who was disfellowshipped and frankly was the biggest pain in the ass I've ever met.
Really interesting. You can hear me, right? You know, there's a way to test a delay is by counting up. I say 1, you say 2, I say 3, and that reveals the delay. I don't know. I just think that's kind of an interesting
until
concept,
the Watchtower organization
like
comes along and kicks you out of the chat. By the time
the Watchtower is currently DDoSing you. Holy cool.
Right.
They'd have a tough time. Like they'd have to be DDoSing YouTube.
He had a serious criminal record too.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad that there's a huge delay on there.
Yeah.
Kind of disappointing. But anyway. There was something that.
Yeah, it's quite a big delay. I might just mute
if
her
I might
again,
offer a
and
suggestion,
if she wants to leave the chat and jump back in.
If she can't get her question. Yeah, if I might offer a suggestion, if she's not able to get her question across, redirect her to the Discord server.
Yeah, we got some. This is like some really weird delay stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm literally just got 4, and that's it.
So I've gone ahead and muted her just for quality for the people who are watching. But I apologize, Shani. It was just there was like 20 or 30 seconds of delay between when you would say something and when you respond. But if you have a question, you can type it in the chat, and we'll in the Google Hangout chat, and we'll make sure to answer it. But I apologize for that. Or if you get somewhere with better internet and you're able to hop on, that would be awesome. But Surus or Captain, do you guys have other questions for Telltale, or if anyone has a question in the chat, I'll try to get to those.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, when you talked about the whole molesting thing, that, like I said, it really pushed me, because that happened when I was 8, and it's
right.
I did a video yesterday on AIG actually where I talked on an article, and it was very hard. I'll just say it was hard for me to get through. So anytime anyone ever goes through that, and you have to have 2 witnesses to prove that, you 2 witnesses or 2 victims. You can never. You might be able to get the 2 victim one, but 2 witnesses is just that's never going to happen, because you know what? They don't do it out in the freaking open.
And you know what? Actually, I'm going to add to this a little bit, because it gets more interesting than that. I didn't really cover this bit, but so this has been happening since like the 1950s, right? They've had the same rule. And anytime there's an incident, any incident, it's written down. The person's name is written down and put in the back of a binder somewhere and put in the back of a kingdom hall, right? And eventually it's sent to the main headquarters. Well, eventually the Jehovah's Witness, the corporation that owns it, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, they ended up splitting up into multiple companies, the new one being called Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. And they gave all of that information to the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses and kept it out of the Watchtower Society. So when the police came knocking on the door and they're asking the governing body of this company, where are these names? They could say, oh, we don't even have control of the names. They're in another corporation completely. Of course, the judge saw straight through that BS and demanded the names anyways. And it was discovered when they demanded the names anyways that there were 23,000 names, roughly.
Good
Between
God.
22 and 24,000 names of pedophiles from 1950 to now.
And how many Jehovah's Witnesses are there, period?
Yeah.
8.1 million inactive, 7.6 million active members. So,
and how many?
This is where
that's got to be a massive percentage.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God.
And those are just the ones that they know about.
I know. So it gets even worse than that, because here's the even worse bit. What happens is there will be a child molester, and they molest somebody in a congregation, a kid, right? And nobody can say a word because there was only one victim. So now that person moves to a new congregation, and the old congregation can't tell the new one that anything happened because it's not proven. It's just allegations, and all allegations stay behind. So the molester molests somebody in one congregation, moves to another, molests somebody in that one, moves to another. It's an endless cycle of people doing it, of one person doing it in like 15 different congregations, and it never being reported because of their rule. So,
that is, oh my God, that's basically the shell game the Catholic Church played.
You know, the crazy thing about this is that I see this happening over and over again with religions. Like, it happened with the Catholic Church. It happens all throughout the Muslim world and goes largely unreported. It happened with Jehovah's Witnesses. It happens with Protestant denominations. And time and time and time again, there's this like really screwed up protect rather than the children. And you know, I never see that happen with atheist organizations or secular or humanist organizations, because, you know, yeah, there are people who are atheists who are pedophiles or who, you know, do horrible things. But, you know, we don't have creeds that we think are more important than human life and human suffering, you know, or preventing human suffering. And so when something like that happens, it's like, you know, yeah, call the authorities, you know, expose that stuff. We don't want that tainting our movement.
Exactly. And I guess this would kind of be more for Telltale here. I just thought about, but with the because when you mentioned the number of names on that list of 2,300 people who were accused, or
2,300 or 23,000?
23,000.
Oh, sorry, 23,000. Oh God, that's even freaking worse. Okay, yeah, that large, just insane number. I wonder how many people got excommunicated, or I guess disfellowshipped is the right word for this. You know, whatever.
How many of those names were disfellowshipped for it? Right.
Yeah. How many people got disfellowshipped? No, not for the pedophilia, for the accusation. If it was like a higher member, I wonder how many people.
Oh, basically none. Just for the accusation, zero. Nobody gets disfellowship for an accusation. Okay. Unless it's proven, they don't get disfellowship for it. But I do wonder, like, okay, so those 23,000 names, those are names of people who have had the accusation. Now, if there's another accusation against them, there's their freedom to prosecute or whatever, right? So they are disfellowshipped for that. But I'm wondering what percentage of the people on that list were never, punished for that. Yeah. I wonder how many. I imagine it's a really high number. I'm guessing around 18 or 19,000 people have just never been punished in any way.
Well, and worse yet, when they're moved from one congregation to another, it's almost like they have a clean slate to molest again.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me of like in Australia when they had was it Cardinal Pell that was covering up a lot of the scandals, and there were some cases where these cardinals would be exposed to, you know, dozens or hundreds of kids over the course of their 20-year career. And it's like, how many, you know, it's not just one case. It's they're going after one kid after another, after another, after another. And oftentimes the Catholic Church would even pay the families to keep them quiet about it.
Yeah, he's from Australia. He was an Australian one.
Pell is, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was Cardinal Law was in Boston.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it was, but there was one of them that I saw. I think it was the one from Boston.
But I mean, they're all over. This happened in the UK. It happened in Italy. It happened in like
Oh yeah. Well, there was one like higher up official who I think it was the one from Boston. The police there's a video of them where the police were asking him, well, how can you not know if molesting a kid is wrong? And the guy was like, well, it's not technically forbidden in the book, referring to the Bible. And I'm like, that's just sick.
We have morality. I mean, I know that they get their morality from the Bible, but we all have some level of shared morality. You know, we know something's wrong, even if it's not in the Bible. I mean, the Bible has nothing to do with it ultimately. We knew murder was wrong long before the Bible was written.
Well, and if anything, our morality has gotten better though since the writing of the Bible. You look at the things that people just kind of shrug, and it's part of their entertainment, like hanging someone at the gallows. Now we find absolutely appalling.
And it's another one where people is one that I hate is when people argue, well, you're misusing the historical context. No, I was like, so it's only okay because it's back then. So slavery in the 1800s, that was perfectly fine and acceptable then, right to you, right? Because you just are misrepresenting the historical context. And it's
oh man.
And then it's not objective morality. But real quick, we have a super chat I want to get to from Michael Walters. And he asked, he said, hopefully this is related enough. Do you think that there are benefits to religion and moral education? What should a secular organization do to prevent it from being destructive to its members? And is a secular religion a bad idea? So first, are there benefits to religion and moral education?
That's interesting. I would say, at least for me personally, no, there is no benefit to religion for me. Of course, there is a sense of community, but even that sense of community in my case is just corrupted to the bone. You're only allowed to talk to this set of people, and they have to treat you really well, and you have to treat them really well. It's just really weird. So no, for me personally, there's no value to religion. And what was that bit about?
There's a distinction there between, he says the benefits between religion and moral education. And I think lumping those two side by side is like, we have to make a delineation where you have moral education, teach your kids ethics, teach them, what is right and wrong and what, is better for society and for them and their own well-being as well as for others versus, here is a cult that, or a religion that tells you something based in dogma and faith and tells you not to question it and keeps you in the fold at any cost. But the second question was, what should a secular organization do to prevent it from being destructive to its members? So if you have a secular alternative, like we put together Faithless Forum and, if we put together different local humanist fellowships, how do we have something like that without the destructiveness that a lot of religions sink into?
Okay, well, I would think that tribalism is really easy to sink into. And first and foremost, we're going to want to keep an eye on that. We want to make sure that we're not being tribalistic, because I do see that kind of thing. Like on my Discord, I see people being tribalistic all the time, and I have to call them out for that kind of thing. And in addition to that, we need to, I think that with religion comes a certain philosophy and a set of moral ideals and things like that that are not science-based or not right exactly. Like you're basing your whole worldview off of something that's completely crooked to the point that you will say slavery is acceptable. because it says so in the Bible. We know slavery is wrong, period. That is the bottom line. And we have people over here saying it's okay. It's just corrupted their mindset completely. So I think the best thing to do is keep secular values and science in mind, and what is objectively best for everybody in that case.
And if it's a free marketplace of ideas, rather than telling someone that, this is dogma, this is what you have to believe, and we all believe in it. And so if we just chant it and do mantras and prayers and stuff and sing songs about it, it's not going to make it any more true. Like, subject it to scrutiny, like you were saying, use the scientific method, but also have a bit of a democratic environment. Cap, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Let me pull the
how can we as a secular community avoid the mistakes of religion and the destructive aspects of?
Well, what I would say is I guess I would add, let's focus on the betterment of humanity, and as long as we keep it to where we're trying to think how to word this properly, where we're helpful to all, no matter their background, being always all inclusive, I think that will help keep us from getting that tribalistic mentality. And even then, that's
sure.
I don't know if that would be so much of an because with most of the people who I know are atheists. I'm not saying that all atheists are like this. I'm sure there's some that aren't. But from what I have seen, most people are there. They're accepting of everyone, and they more or less they want to make it a better society for everyone, religious, not religious, atheist, not atheist, whatever. And also with atheists, with the joke of herding cats, trying to get all atheists together with one thing. I don't know if, like I said, so us just being focused on like, oh, we have to be like this. This is how we have to be, like religion does. Then I think that mentality that we have, where we're always just like, well, no, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't care what you say. I think that somewhat by nature with atheists, almost just how they have that mindset of, well, I'm not going to let you control me. I think that kind of helps with it a little. Not saying it does a whole lot, but does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that makes sense. And something else we want to keep in mind is the fact that most of us at least, were religious at one point in our lives. And we did have that tribalistic mindset at one point. We need to make sure that we're keeping that in mind as time goes on. We need to work that out. Because I know personally, I know that I have a persecution complex on some level. And I know that there are, religious things have stuck with me through all of this. But I've made it a constant endeavor to try to work that stuff out of my personality, always working and improving yourself.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of something else. Telltale, I watched one of your videos earlier. It was it was one that they showed at like a conference. I don't remember when it was or what it was called, but it was the one where they were all in like a basement room together. The video you were showing and talking about, and they were like, "Oh, the police are after them because they're Jehovah Witness."
Yeah.
Do they really have that type of mentality that, oh, the government's going to come kill us and kill us one day?
Yes, they do. And
wow.
On some level, they are preppers. You're supposed to have a go bag. If you get on YouTube and Google, or I guess look on YouTube, search for, if you look for Jehovah's Witnesses go bag, you will find a Kingdom Hall demonstration of them prepping for Armageddon. It's so interesting to watch. I really need to do something
Which
on
is
it,
actually coming up this April 24th, if you're not ready for the rapture.
Right.
I thought it was the 23rd. I thought it was the 23rd.
I heard about that
I've lived through, I think, like the big main ones that got like a lot of attention. I think since I've been born in 90, there's been 11 major, quote unquote, major end of the world, not the little crazy nuts who are like, it's going to end in two, not one of those little small ones, but the ones that got big attention.
Oh, if you go on Wikipedia, and I actually included this in my video on prophecy, but there is a long list of failed end of the world prophecies. That have,
I mean, the only, thinking about the only one I can think of. Yeah, the only end of the world that I can think of that was not have any religious or culture base was Y2K. That's about the only one that didn't have a religion behind it.
Oh, there were religious people behind that one too. But real quick,
okay, yeah, sorry.
We have a couple other questions and stuff to get to, but Mike asked, "Is a secular religion a bad idea?"
I personally think that it is. Yeah, a secular religion. We're kind of our goal here is to eradicate this tribalistic mindset, and I feel like a secular religion is going to contribute to a tribalistic mindset. Now, don't get me wrong, there is community there to be had, and that's good, but I feel like we can have community without having a tribalistic mindset. I don't think we need it. I mean, that's just me. I don't think we need a secular religion.
Yeah, I would kind of add to that you know, you can have secular community, you can have secular fellowship, you can even have, you know, different organizations can have kind of codes of conduct, what they expect from their members as far as, you know, if you violate these, you know, terms. Yeah, there are some things that you don't want your organization to do. Like if I put together a group like the Freedom from Religion Foundation, I'd probably want to have some type of code of conduct that's expected of our members. Don't rape kids might be up there in it. You know, but as far as a religion, as far as, you know, buying into some, you know, belief system, you know, that's not evidence-based, that is, you know, or having faith or chants or mantras or anything supernatural or cult-like tactics, like it just, you open yourself up to a lot of stuff that's could be potentially harmful. And I think you can have community without that.
I wanted to ask you something too, real fast before we move on. When we were at the forum, I guess we finished up a panel that I was on, and it was about coming out of the closet, I think. And somebody from the audience came up to me. It was a woman, and she was like, "I don't want this to come across as proselytizing, but you know, there's a Unitarian Universalist church like right up the road that provides a sense of community to people. And I just don't know enough about that to endorse it personally. What do you think about what's left?"
Sorry, the very end of that. What was it? Did you say it was right up the road? It cut out.
Yeah, the Unitarian Universalist Church, and I don't know enough about it to endorse it myself. What do you think about it?
So my take on the UU Church is, I actually attended one this like last weekend, and I had a UU Church reach out to sponsor my videos and said that like a good chunk of them are atheists anyways. And you know, my take is, do they put beliefs above people? Do they put you know, I'm reading right now in the chat, Carson Barlow just wrote, you know, focus on values, not beliefs, as you know, he gave a $2 super chat. Thank you. But if we put, you know, these ideologies above, you know, to the point where human suffering results from it, then I have a big issue with it. If they don't have any creeds or beliefs and they basically just believe in the well-being of humanity and they have humanistic principles,
right, then,
you know, yeah, I'm okay with that. A lot of times
so it depends on the church. Is that fair to say?
With the UU Church, oftentimes they do have multiple services, and it's kind of depends on which one you go to. So like some of them, the one that I went to, they had strictly a humanist service where almost everyone in the entire room was atheist. And they didn't have anything religious, anything supernatural, anything spiritual, no woo, no mysticism, nothing of that sort. Now, there are Unitarians too, and even the same church had a different service going on simultaneously that was more traditional conservative. And that in that case, I'm like, if they're, you know, bringing up prayer and God and all this stuff, I still think that there's no evidence for it. And I'm like, I would rather have the community without the woo, but I don't think that the UU Church is anywhere near as harmful. I think that they do tend to be more positive, mostly positive, compared to churches that, you know, are anti-gay, that shun members, that, you know, will go against the scientific consensus on things like climate change and global warming and stuff like that. Like, you know, I don't really have anything against them particularly, but yeah.
But I guess you do have to watch which church it is. Is that fair?
Yeah, watch the church, watch the service, like go into it with an open mind, but with your guard up.
Okay. Yeah. Keep that in mind.
Real quick, we got a $10 or $9.99, which I guess is 666 upside down, from Caitlin Chloe.
Awesome.
She said, "Love you guys, just contributing to the cause." And she is on a channel, Godless Engineer, with John Gleason. So definitely go check them out. I had John on mine for an April Fool's thing not too long ago. Jehovah Witness pledged $5, said that he just got paid, and we shouted him out. So he said, "Take my money." So thank you for that. And then we have another one from Mike Walters, $10. He said, "Can you avoid tribalism?" I think this is a follow-up to his previous questions. "Can you avoid tribalism by making your own tribe the flourishing of humanity? By religion, I mean a community searching for moral framework and reason. Nothing should be unquestionable, however." I would say that's not really tribalistic if it's all of humanity. That's more cosmopolitan. It's branching out. Yeah, it is kind of an expanding circle where suddenly it's encompassing all of humanity. But I don't think that that's really tribalism anymore at that point.
No.
What are your thoughts?
Okay, go ahead, Telltale, since you're the guest. I did have one thing.
Go ahead, Cap, and we'll
okay. It was saying by religion, meaning the community of moral framework and reason. I would say if we're going just off of that by a secular religion, if that's what they mean, I would say that we kind of do have that already then with secular humanism. So if that's what they meant, that kind of sounds a little like secular humanism, where we're trying to find the moral framework and reasoning, so that way we can more or less flourish and make humanity better through secular means. So if that's, I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding, but that's kind of what it sounds like to me and my take on it.
Interesting. Do you think you can summarize it one more time for me? Give it to me one more time so I can think about, the question itself.
He said, "Can you avoid tribalism by making your tribe the flourishing of all of humanity? By religion, I meant a community searching for a moral framework and reason. Nothing should be unquestionable, however."
Interesting. So the question, to me, the way I'm interpreting it is, can you eliminate tribalism by making your own tribe flourish? Is that
by expanding the tribe to include all of humanity?
Got it. Okay. I don't think that there's anything. I don't think there's anything that all of humanity can agree on. There will always be detractors and somebody, disagreeing. But I feel like if we could hypothetically manage to get everybody on the same page with stuff, sure. Although I'm sure there'd be tribalism about something else, some other thing.
Yeah.
Some other little.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but even some of the most radical followers of, let's say, for example, Justin Bieber, and they're not killing each other over, Bieber versus, I don't know, the whatever other boy band is currently big.
Backstreet Boys? Isn't Backstreet Boys pretty popular? Or NSYNC or something?
You're dating yourself. Off by a decade or so, but but anyways, if you compare that to, or Apple versus iPhone, nobody's killing each other over, the Samsung Galaxy Note.
I was something Telltale said about that we can't ever get humanity to agree on anything. I can think of one thing that humanity has always agreed on. We love to fight each other. I mean, because we've been fighting each other since our inception. That's about the only thing we can agree on, and even that we fight over.
Well, but that's shifting. That really is shifting, and there's been a lot of contributions to that. One has been, in response to the question, he was asking about, how can we search for moral frameworks and reason? I think that's different from religion, and that kind of falls more under philosophy. That comes into, ethics and, learning about ethics. And as governments grow, we set up laws, we amend those laws, and we make them better for our society, for more well-being, as we learn what works and what doesn't work. We gather more data through, political science, through, polls and research and data collection and whatnot. And so, it's not perfect. Governments aren't, but that's kind of the framework that we have, and that's better to have, a democratic government where we try to figure out laws based in data, what's right and wrong and better for society, than something that is completely not based in data and it's just a speculation of some cult leader that wrote something down on a piece of paper a few thousand years ago. And
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to make a really bad joke. Sorry.
I gotcha. Yeah. Real quick, there was a question that I think is really interesting. It's not a super chat, but he did one a minute ago. Lord Ranulf Ulfson wrote, "What is the deal with the 144,000 saved thing attributed to Jehovah's Witnesses? I've heard assorted things. Do you want to talk about that?"
Sure. Basically, there's a chapter, Revelation chapter 7, verses 1 through 14, I think. It's been a while since I looked, but it basically says something about there are going to be, there are 12 tribes of Israel, and there are 12,000 from each tribe who will be saved. And that's 144,000 people. And then there's a great crowd, blah, blah, blah. Middle. Basically, the Bible didn't mean what they claim it means. They're pulling from different parts and different verses to make it say what they want it to say. But their belief behind the whole thing is they think that 144,000 people are going to be raptured to heaven when Armageddon starts, and those people will become kings and priests alongside Jesus, and their first order of business is going to be coming to earth to slaughter everybody who is not an active baptized Jehovah's Witness. All 7 billion of us. And so the 144,000 are going to get to go to heaven, serve as kings and priests with Jesus, and everybody else will get to live on earth after Armageddon and clean up the dead bodies.
Wait, so here's a question. If there's only 144,000 slots, why are they so eager to, spread the message so that there's more Jehovah's Witnesses, so that they decrease their chances of being one of those tickets, one of those lottery tickets?
I was actually going to say.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, here's how they view it. Okay, they're more interested. They're happy to live on a paradise earth after Armageddon. That they think that's how God intended it in the first place with the Garden of Eden, and God's intentions never changed. They think that God still intends to make earth a paradise, and so all of the true believers are going to live on a paradise earth as God intended in the first place. But there will be 144,000 people going to heaven to rule with Jesus and kill all the bad people and stuff. So those 144,000 special people were chosen before birth. They are already chosen. Either you will or you won't be one of them, so on and so forth. So
what's makes me wonder, what in the heck is the point to being a Jehovah's Witness if you can't even guarantee a spot away from tribulation? I mean, isn't that the point of believing in Jesus, to avoid that trouble?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that, because as far as tribulation goes, they believe that they're going to have to go through tribulation period. They think, and you remember the bunker video where they were in a basement hiding and everything. That was tribulation. That's what they think is going to happen. They're going to go through that, and they're going to be hunted by governments and all this other stuff. Welcome back, sirs, by the way. But what is it?
I was going to say, I just thought it was that they had some crazy notion of, basically it was like their version of Waco. Basically, the government is just turning on them because they're Jehovah Witnesses. Because of tribulation.
You read Left Behind, Cat Brony?
It's been years. It was in high school when I read it, but yeah.
I was going to say, when I saw that video on Telltale's channel, I immediately went, I think I read that in Left Behind. They literally just ripped that off of that series.
That's nuts. So real quick, so Sharni L actually wrote a comment in the chat because her mic is getting some lag, but she said that she actually met Cardinal Pell in Australia. Wow. I think in Australia. She said back when she was pretending to be a Catholic. That's insane. And also thank you for the super chat. Real quick, we have Carson with us, joining us. Sorry for the delay in greeting you, but welcome to the Hangout.
No worries.
Do you have any questions for Telltale, me, or anyone else on the panel?
No, not at this time. Just love what you guys are doing.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, that's cool.
Telltale, I do have a question for you.
Sure.
Regarding this end times tribulation. When you left the faith, you kind of went through, and I went through the same thing, a period of just depression. Where do I find meaning? Where do
Sure.
It's all pointless. And I think that this is programmed into us almost as a survival mechanism for the ideology, where it's like, oh, without God, you can't have purpose. Life is horrible. And so we buy into it. It's brainwashed into us. But when you actually get out and you start to kind of re-examine it and think about it, aren't you incredibly relieved that there is no hell, there is no tribulation, there's no fire and brimstone, all this stuff that you're talking about at the end times? We're gonna have to clean up the dead bodies and stuff and like go through this torture. That right there is reason to be like dancing. That's like reason to be like, I'm an atheist, I'm free from the craziness and the torture and the fear of hell. Like, I actually don't live under that cloud or that burden anymore. That's an amazing thing. And I don't think enough people really talk about that enough, that there's no basis. It has no basis in reality. There's no evidence for it whatsoever. And when you realize that, just like it's a liberating
Yes, definitely.
thing.
You're right. I was actually thinking about this because Christopher Hitchens famously said something to the effect of, some people really wish it was true, but I don't, he said. He said he's glad that we don't live in a world with a malevolent dictator who tells you what to do and won't let you into, VIP heaven
forces
if you
to
don't
be born
do it
sick and orders you to get better.
Yeah, like
watches you even when you sleep.
And he's right.
Makes him sound like a molester.
Well, I mean, anyways, I don't share, honestly, I don't share Christopher Hitchens' view of God for some denominations. I think I would be okay with it if it was like the Methodist denomination was true or something. But Jehovah's Witnesses, definitely not. That is the ugliest religion ever. It's so ugly. Birds are going to eat your body when you freaking die in Armageddon. It's just so ugly. But
wow.
In some denominations, I would like for it to be true on some level, because I don't want to die. But yeah, there was a huge relief coming out of that religion.
It almost sounds like that the JW version of Armageddon would almost make like a blockbuster horror film.
Oh yeah, it definitely would.
Oh yeah.
I guess a question kind of for everyone here, if they want to take it. It's just one I just kind of thought of with what Telltale was talking about. But I guess one for Telltale and then one for everyone else as well is how much for Telltale mostly is how much self-hatred. I know in other denominations you have to almost have some form of self-hatred of Christianity. Is it worse in the Jehovah Witnesses, or is it like less? Because you have to admit, in almost any denomination, you're a worthless, dirty sinner. So you have to have a little self-hatred there. Is it worse?
Be super happy that God's willing to accept you.
I think in some ways, traditional Christianity or like Pentecostal or whatever is actually worse than Jehovah's Witnesses, and in other ways, Jehovah's Witnesses are worse. So. You are a filthy sinner and all of that other good stuff that they push. But you are supposed to be happy. Just like lift your, just sudden perma smile. It's really, really bizarre. And I'm sure you guys probably noticed the acting you saw in that bunker video. That wasn't bad acting. That was their personality. And that is what this society wants Jehovah's Witnesses to act like. That was not bad acting. They were all like that. They're not all bad actors. That's just a personality that you're supposed to put on, the cult persona.
Yeah, so. I was watching it and I'm like any of your Jehovah's Witnesses, whenever you play their videos, I'm usually sitting there like, okay, they need to make these more public and available, because to me, this is good propaganda. They're producing anti-Jehovah's Witness propaganda.
It's so easy to point out.
Yeah. But my other question, holy cool, kind of made me think of this one. Was how much like relief or fear did you feel when you realized more like, there isn't hell. These things aren't happening.
Yeah.
Like, so just kind of more for anyone after you left.
Okay.
If you were Christian before you left.
What about you, actually?
For me,
Koolaid, do you?
Oh, me? Well, I mean, I did a video on this. It was the one where I asked a pastor the same question that made his daughter an atheist, and in that video, I talk about at the end how when I was like right out of college, I was watching this video by 43 Alley where he talks about how when he discovered that hell wasn't real and how, Jews don't believe in hell, and they were basically the writers of the Old Testament. They, know it inside and out in its original language, and they don't buy into this. And he looked at how hell evolved over time. And for me, that was kind of the nail in the coffin for my belief, because I was already starting to doubt it. I was already believing that the earth was, older than 6,000 years old. I wasn't a young earth creationist, and I didn't buy into any of that nonsense. But at that point, I still had, this fear, this emotional thing that was keeping me, attached to my belief, where I was like, I don't believe it anymore at all, but I'm afraid that I'm going to go to hell. And so I'm kind of just like keeping one foot in the door just in case. And when I lost that, it was extremely liberating. It was extremely freeing. And I still had some kind of, well, now where do I find purpose? And that, for that, I did a lot of reading. I, dug into a lot of this stuff, but I started to realize that like we are able to make up our own purpose. Like we're able to come up with it, and it's not top down. It's not this slave master telling you what to do, what to find meaning. It's like, there's not a meaning that's just inherent in the cosmos. But then again, why do we give a crap about the opinions of black holes or, flying meteors? It's not out there. It's in here. We get to come up with it. We have the freedom to do that. And that's a incredibly liberating, amazing feeling.
Yeah. To me,
what about? You go ahead.
I was just saying, like, to me, it's almost like taking an inverse leap of faith to actually let go of all of the things that have been pounded into you growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one of the hardest things for me when I left was do you have something to say, Koolaid? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Just real quick. Frinner the God Eater pledged $5 and said to call you brother Telltale for the rest of the chat. Go ahead.
But yeah, I was just saying, I know one of the hardest things for me to let go, and it's still kind of hard for me today, is the comfort of an afterlife. I mean, hell, I was usually, I even though it was never taught to me, it just, this one always made the most sense. Was I was more of an annihilationist. I was brought up Lutheran and Southern Baptist, so I mean that's completely contrary to both of their views. Because to me it was like, well, a loving God would not torture you forever. You just won't get paradise and you'll cease to exist. That's kind of always where my view kind of laid. And even still to this day, and I've been an atheist for about 3 years now. I've been out for about 2. It's just, it's still hard to want to let go of that comfort of from the unknown, of some form of an afterlife. And I think that was the hardest part for me, was realizing there is, I mean, what we have here is what we have here.
Doesn't that give us more incentive to try to make it better? Because this isn't a rough draft. This is the real deal. We're not living for some future life. It's not if you sit on a pillar in the middle of a desert and starve yourself for God that it's somehow going to give you a better reward in the future. It's no, we have a chance right now to decrease human suffering, make life better for all of us, increase technological advancements, medical advancements, so we don't die of bone cancer, so that children don't suffer, so that, we can extend our lifespan, so maybe we can live for 150 or 200 years. Maybe we can explore space and see the limits of human potential. And every time that I see a religious institution that basically just throws in the towel and says, humanity's just getting worse, why even bother? Like, that infuriates me. That it's, they start cutting funding to research and development programs, to NASA, to, any science-based education. And they're like, oh, teach the controversy, teach creationism in school, and we should all be focusing on Jesus in the future.
You put a climate change denier as head of NASA.
Oh God. Yeah. Oh, don't even get started on that one. But like for me with Afterlife, it wasn't so much like it was an actual life. It was The way I saw it was, and a friend of mine still holds views similar to this. And I'm trying to convince her. No, there is none. It took me a long time to accept it. Even after I became an atheist, I still kind of have this afterlife view of like almost kind of Buddhist, or it was more like a Jedi. I think they were based on Buddhist, where you're all connected. And when you die, your afterlife is basically living through nature itself. So I kind of had more of a view like that of an afterlife. So this still gave you the motivation to live this life to the fullest. But like I said, it took me really a long time to really shake that view of, that there isn't that. I mean, that was me. And so not all afterlives are like there are some that have that, and that's I have a few friends who actually hold that view.
Yeah, I grew up Mormon, and man, I don't get my own planet anymore. Damn it!
You don't get your magical underwear anymore either.
Yeah.
Carson, I want to come back. I want to come back to that idea, maybe compare and contrast Mormonism with Jehovah's Witnesses, but real quick, because these super chats are blowing through really fast. We did get another super chat from Sharni for $1, and I meant to. She had posted a question right above it, but I didn't have time to get to it. Also, Sharni, because you are a patron, and the only reason you're not able to really communicate in the chat is because of lag. If you want to just post it in the Google Hangout conversation, or if you post it in the live chat, and I might miss it if it goes by too quick, just repost it and I'll try to get to it. You don't have to do super chats. But she wrote that when Cardinal Pell got accused, many of the Adelaide Catholics went full-blown conspiracy, and they were thinking that he was being accused by Anglicans falsely, which is crazy.
That never. I mean, I really, it almost never gets old watching the infighting in Christianity at times. Of no, my denomination is better than your denomination. Type thing. I mean, when they start getting violent, that's when I don't like to see it. But when it's just like they're like, "Oh no, you're a conspiracy. You're a Satan worship. No, you're a Satan." It's always just kind of comical. Like you guys follow the same God.
Yeah. Also, Bjorn Kamitz, thank you so much for the pledge as well. It says 20 and then SEK. I'm not sure what currency is that. Swedish kroners or something. I don't know. And then Travis Bell wrote, I have the same, but what if ? Keeping 1 foot from the door problem. Any specific advice? I think he's talking about when you come out of hell, or that the fear of hell. What advice for overcoming that fear of like, what if I'm wrong? I'll put this one to Brother Telltale.
Okay.
And also
that's interesting.
He pledged 666. So the devil.
That's okay. All right. Well, in that case, since you pledged 666, I got to show you my tattoo. It's a 666. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah.
It's a 666, and it says cursed. Yeah, it says cursed. So anyway, how do you get over that fear of hell? Honestly, I would say I know a lot of people who still live with it, even knowing it's not real, even being atheists now. They still live with this fear of hell. And my best suggestion, honestly, would be to talk to somebody about religious trauma syndrome, talk to a secular therapist, because there's nothing to be ashamed of going to a therapist. I've been to therapists in my life, even about religion. So I feel like we need to break that stigma. I feel like that's really important. But yeah, that's about the best I got.
So apparently it is a Swedish currency, but I would say in response to that, one, study the religions a little bit and study the origin of the hell story. Look into, Zoroastrianism, look into the Greek ideas and concepts of hell, look into the Egyptian concepts of hell, the early concepts in Judaism. And like, you'll see that, in Judaism, they didn't have a notion of fire and brimstone. The worst that they had was this idea of soul or Sheol or Sheol, whatever. It's like some type of like underworld, and it was basically everyone went there. Even Abraham, I think, says like, you'll send me to Sheol for worrying or something. And he was supposedly like a super religious, God loved him and whatnot. This notion comes about later. And so when you start to kind of learn the history of it and where it comes from, it becomes far less frightening. It disarms it. You start to realize that this is all made up. It's a fear tactic. It's a fear tactic that has evolved in order to really bring you, cling to you, keep you from leaving the religion. All made up. It's a fear tactic. I'm getting a little bit of echo, I think, possibly from Travis. You might need to mute the YouTube video and just watch it through the chat. But when you start to realize that it's man-made, then the fear goes away. But then you start to realize how liberating it is, how freeing it is to not live under that fear constantly. Like I used to have sleep paralysis, where you would wake up in your bed and you were kind of your brain. The science behind it is basically like your brain kind of clicks on and you're awake, but there's parts of your brain that send chemicals to your muscles to paralyze them, to keep you from rolling over, thrashing, falling out of bed, and hurting yourself. But sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, and you wake up and become conscious, but you're still paralyzed to your bed. And oftentimes you have like brief hypnagogic hallucinations, and you'll see things in the room. And when this happens, oftentimes people will experience things that are seemingly supernatural. So initially, I experienced what I thought were demons. Then once I stopped believing in demons, I started experiencing things like robbers that were breaking in, or even zombie apocalypses or aliens and stuff. And it's otherwise, like, this happens to, I think, like maybe about a fifth of all adults, at some point in their life.
It happened to me for a long time.
Yeah. And you're otherwise completely healthy, but you experience this and it freaks the crap out of you. And so when I realized that it wasn't demons, then that was kind of a weight off my shoulders. It's like, that happened to me when I was religious. I should have been like immune to demon possession or something. And yet I felt that. And then when I became non-religious, like the whole demon stuff went away. And it's like, I started to understand what was actually going on. The more you learn about psychology and you learn about, when people thought that they were being demon possessed, it was like a word for word description of a seizure. You don't see people with seizures going to exorcists now. You see them getting medication.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was thinking about for getting over the fear of hell, even after you consciously don't believe it, is that, again, it's been ingrained in us so deeply as a kid that there's a lot of triggers that we're not aware of that come up in our day-to-day that still kind of spring that. And I like what was said. I don't know who said it, just like not to be ashamed that you have that fear, don't beat yourself up, but just a simple like meditation tactic, which is called noting, that you just, you note where it is and you don't identify with the fear, and just simply acknowledging it goes a long way to kind of helping you cope with letting it dissipate from your psyche. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time. But
what did you say?
That's what I found is helpful.
What was that called?
I actually joined so that I could actually talk easier. So I don't have that pop up very often. I mean, I'm out of the closet with all my friends, just not my family. But like I've been an atheist for a while, and I don't have a steady fear of that. It's just every now and then something happens, and I'm just like, but what if? It's very rare though. So yeah.
Well, you're second guessing yourself, and that's a good thing, because that's what we're trying to do as, free thinkers.
Yeah, and with me, as far as I think the other reason why I had more of like I said, more of an annihilation belief, kind of before I became an atheist, and even then, I'm not even sure of how much of a Christian or believer I really was when I was younger, because I can remember multiple times where I was like, because I remember 4th grade, I had someone tell me, well, why do you believe in God? And I flat out said, I don't even know if I do. It's never really like, I never always went to church. I didn't always go to church. I wasn't like super religious as a kid. I think I had more the belief that because my family had it, and I think I had more the annihilation. Well, if what my family says is true and God is supposed to be all loving, I'm like, then hell completely contradicts him. So it must be some sort of like you just cease to be. You don't have all the torture and everything involved. And so I think just more my own beliefs, just growing up more, I think is why it was easy for me. But I do agree, if you can find like a support group, some form of therapy, secular therapy, something to help with that, that is, that's always good. I mean, there's all kinds of people out there who would be, if you just need to talk to them, you know, they'll be willing to talk.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's plenty of people who are going through exactly what you're going through right now, who were, I guess, quote unquote, that deep in the religion, and leaving it, they went through those fears.
Can
So
I make
would
two recommendations?
For me,
absolutely.
As far as resources regarding that, one of them is if you go to recoveringfromreligion.com.
That's the name of it. I was about to ask you what the name of that was, because it came up at Faithless Forum last week, but I couldn't remember what the name of it was.
It's an organization that is it was founded by one of my friends, Dr. Daryl Ray, and he's a psychologist, and he basically, there's a call in and chat line. You can either chat or call, and they have volunteers. I think it's 24/7 where they try to have someone on the line to talk to you about stuff. And they have a bunch of resources too.
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily need something like that. It's not like I have crisis moments or anything during the day where I need to chat with somebody. It's just more along the lines of, I'm trying to think of an example actually, but I can't think of one right now. But it's just like in every day-to-day whatever, just something pops in your head and it's like, oh, God's punishing me for this. No, Travis, that's stupid. You're retarded. What's going on?
I know what you mean. Yeah, that's religious trauma syndrome for sure.
It's what?
I have the same thing. It's religious trauma syndrome, RTS. And the term was coined in like the late 80s, early 90s, I think. Maybe even the late 90s. But anyways, I do the same thing. Like anytime some kind of crazy things happening to me, I will just habitually say, "Dear Jehovah, please help me through blah, blah, blah." Just, out of nowhere, for no reason, I'll just start praying.
Yeah. Like exactly, that's it.
Yeah. I had.
So you still have that too after all this? Okay, good. Well, I'm
I do.
I had a little bit of that where it was like, because after I had, finally made the move to atheist before I was even out, it was I still had times where I actually had a few times where I woke up in a cold sweat. I didn't remember, like when you wake up from a nightmare, I didn't remember what it was about, but it's just I sat there worrying about maybe I'm wrong, maybe there is, and so I can understand that. I mean, but yeah, there's like I said, there's a lot of people out there who have gone through that. Like I said, I don't think mine was as severe as some people, but I mean, religion. I've said this about them. They were experts in psychology before psychology was even known about, because they know exactly which triggers to push, which buttons to push, exactly what to say. So that way, even after you leave, all they have to do is hit those key phrases, and your mind immediately reverts back into the, oh crap, I'm going to hell. What's going? You immediately go back into that.
Yeah, I don't really have that problem though. It's Telltale hit the nail on the head. It's just a habitual,
random things.
Yeah.
I honestly,
it's a habit.
I've been an atheist now since probably it's hard to pinpoint an exact time, but I was like maybe 22 or 23. I'm 28 now. And I really don't get that anymore. I did for several years. And
it only took you 5 years.
But I mean, it does. Things do get better with time. But I think that like the more you distance yourself from it, time does heal those wounds. And the longer you're out of it, and the less you worry about it, the less you think about it, the more you focus on helping others and doing great things for humanity and making this world better and trying to focus on your work and whatnot. Then you'll fear it less and less and less. If you're constantly surrounding yourself with religious communities that are trying to ingrain you with that, then it might be more difficult.
Yeah. The only problem there is it's my immediate family. They're the only ones that are religious, and they're like super religious. I mean, my parents were Southern Baptist missionaries in Taiwan for 16 years. My sister might even be more than I know. I know your backstory, and my sister might even be worse, even though she didn't she didn't do any missionary work. But man, it's.
Are you out to them?
To my family, no. They're the only ones that don't know. And to be honest, I don't know if I'll ever come out to my parents. And probably not my sister, because she would tell my mother. And I don't think my mother would be able to deal with it. Because I came out to my parents as gay like years and years and years ago. And that already like broke my mother's heart. If I came out as atheist, oh man, I don't even know what would happen.
Yeah, I actually kind of came out more by accident. I wasn't meaning to, and I just finally, I got fed up with seeing all the really, really nice, feel-good, lovey-dovey Bible verses, and I'm like, these people don't know what it is. And I finally just had enough, and I just I posted one of the, I don't remember which one it was, but I tried to find one of the most just jaw-dropping, oh my God, how is that in the Bible verse? I think I looked up, I did a Google search like top 10 most evil Bible verses or something like that. I just picked one just because I know what's in there, and I just couldn't think of one to put. So I just did a quick search for it, and I posted that, and yeah, that kind of out of me as an atheist right then and there. And of course, my mom's still like, my mom and dad they're like really.
But you were sharing the Bible.
Yeah, like they're super religious, but they don't go to church a lot. So my mom, she's still like, well, how can you turn your back on your Lord and Savior? I said, okay, how did you turn your back? I asked her this one time, and it did not get the look I was expecting. I should have, but I mean, if looks could kill, I would have been dead then. Because I said, well, how come you turned your back on Santa Claus? I thought that was.
Oh man,
no, I could never say that to my mother.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, because she had been saying all those things. I finally had enough. I said, "Well, how you turn your?" Because I got tired of her saying that, and I just finally said, "No, I've had enough. I'll say it." And I actually at one time, what actually made me an atheist was studying to go to seminary school. I wanted to be a Southern Baptist minister. I know I had really my weird views. I wanted to be a Southern Baptist minister, but that was mostly because, like I said, with my past when I was 8, a minister friend of mine. A friend of mine's dad is a minister, and he was there when I was going through that. So from then on, I wanted to be a minister to help people when they needed it. And that was the way I felt was the best way to do it. So I was actually studying to be a minister, and through studying the Bible, I realized, oh, maybe I don't
that would do it
believe
with
this.
everybody.
It sounds like you wanted to become a minister of truth. And it sounds like you eventually got there, just not in the way that you initially would have expected.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I know with my channel, I tend to try and focus on the theological arguments and the theology side of it, because I've always said, if you ever want to argue against a Christian, the best way to do it is, the best thing you can do is know the Bible. Because you can then, because like I've had a lot of people say, well, that's Old Testament for you, and I go, no. That Old Testament is still to this day to be followed by words of Jesus, by order of Jesus Christ. Because they said, well, it says this in the Paul. I go, so are you saying Paul has more authority than Jesus? They don't realize half of what their own Bible says.
Yeah,
and you have to just
really convoluted really fast. But real quick, I have a couple of other items to touch on. We are going to wrap the stream up here just in a minute. Just, I don't want to keep Telltale too long. I want to be respectful of his time. But a couple things. First of all, Surus, thank you for the super chat. I know that you're in here, but he said that he's just sending this to support the HC cult. Do you mean HK, like Holy Koolaid, or is it Koolaid with a C because I'm too cool for school?
Oh God, no.
I don't know if he heard me or if he's in the other room, but the other thing, Lord Ulfson, he pointed out that he said he was looking up some stuff and found that according to Revelation 14:4, apparently you have to be a male virgin to be one of the 144,000. So how many JWs would be screwed because of that?
Oh,
surprised that the entire religion isn't a giant sausage fest then.
I know. That's awesome. I just, to touch on that real quick, Jehovah's Witnesses usually get married really young at like 18 years old because you're not allowed to do anything before marriage. So inevitably, like all of my siblings all got married at 18. So.
Huh. Now, do you have, in comparison, we had you and Carson was a Mormon. both Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses go door to door, but the ideology
give it up for the missionary life.
The ideology is very different. Like within Mormonism, don't you have like a training period and you go on a dedicated mission you don't really have any say over? But Jehovah's Witnesses, is it local? Or how do you tell the differences? What are the differences between the missions of both?
So with Mormonism, it's an official thing like, hey, you're going to go away from your family for 2 years if you're a man or 18 months if you're a woman. And you go to Provo. They have this whole facility called the Missionary Training Center. And you spend 3 weeks there if you're going to just have your native language, or more time if you're going to learn a new language. Then they ship you off, and you spend the remainder of your mission out in either another foreign country or a foreign state. I actually spent my time in Texas, and you don't really get to see your family or talk to anyone from back home, lest it distract you from the Lord's work. And you do get to call back.
So you were the bastard that came knocking on my door.
Yeah. So sorry about that.
No, I'm just messing.
I'm trying to make amends here.
Yeah, I can touch on that.
Did you do missions work at all?
Well, Jehovah's Witnesses do have missionaries, but it's not exactly the same. It's a little bit different. I feel like I mentioned this at some point recently, but basically Jehovah's Witness missionaries are actually paid by the Watchtower Society to go to foreign countries specifically. All of their door knocking, or most of their door knocking outside of missionaries like that, is all local and unpaid. But they do kind of require you to get a certain number of hours per month. They prefer you get at least 10 hours a month. Otherwise, you're considered inactive. Or that's what it was when I was on the inside. And they have different levels of preacher, I guess you could say, where they have auxiliary pioneer, which is where you agree. Now, these numbers have changed over the years, so I'm probably going to mess it up, but this is what it used to be when I was in it. An auxiliary pioneer agrees to get 50 hours of door knocking per month for a single month. A pioneer agrees to get 50 every month for a year, and a special pioneer agrees to get 90 hours per month for a year. So anyway, it's a little bit different, but it's interesting, the parallels you can find in there.
And so which one is it that has bikes and backpacks?
That would be Mormons, right?
So Mormons have bikes and backpacks, and you guys both wear ties?
Oh, yeah. White shirts and ties.
But the Mormons
but Mormons wear black ties with white shirts, right? Jehovah's Witnesses don't.
Well, no, you actually do have a say over what kind of tie you wear.
Okay. Black pants or?
No, just dress pants. Has to be a white shirt.
So can you have like a special Transformers tie?
Oh, well, that would be awesome, but no, it does need to be somewhat conservative. But oh man,
what if it has Jesus on it or Joseph Smith?
That would be acceptable, assuming
Transformers Joseph Smith.
I'm curious. What does a former Jehovah's Witness say whenever one comes to their door? And same for a Mormon.
I will tell you what I say. It has happened to me too, but up until now, I've lived in the same district as I did before. So anytime they came to visit me, they knew me. But now I live in a different district. I'm just waiting for it to happen. I'm going to invite them in. I'm going to have some coffee with them, and we're just going to do some street epistemology and see if we can work that belief right out.
Good old Bible bashing.
I have to laugh. Oh, go ahead, Garrison. I just thought of something funny.
No, it's actually go ahead.
It was since we're talking about going door to door. I actually have one really funny story about some Mormons I ran into that came to my house one time. Now, I'm a huge musical fan, so I was just for the hell of it, I was actually listening to the Book of Mormon soundtrack, and they came knocking.
Oh, nice.
and I started asking them because one of the questions that made them realize I wanted to just have some fun with them. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested." Because I turned it off, and I went, So, I have autism and seizures. Can your magical frog cure me? They finally caught on.
I wonder, like, do you think they'd recognize the Book of Mormon soundtrack?
No.
Usually.
No.
No. Okay.
No.
We're very much like anything that's like anti-Mormon.
Apostate.
Yeah, it's you stay away from it like the plague.
Because they asked me, they asked me like, well, what do you mean by a frog? I said, well, Joseph Smith screwed a frog and it cured someone's AIDS. I mean, I'm just wondering, will it work for my autism? But they're like, where did you hear that? And I went, the Book of Mormon. They go, that's not in our book. I said, no, it's a Broadway musical. And then they finally realized, this guy is just trolling us. I kept it there for about 15 minutes.
Gentlemen, I would love to stay in chat, but I actually do need to get going. Definitely looking forward to next time.
We're about to wrap it up, but real quick, while I finish this out, can we get the YouTube video up to 100 likes before we call it a night? Smash that like button. Let YouTube know that this video needs to be recommended, that more people need to realize how cult-like Jehovah's Witnesses are, to go check out Telltale Atheist channel, and which I've put, by the way, in the link. I've put a link to both his Twitter and his YouTube and stuff, so go check that out.
When you like a video, does that make it public so other people can see that you liked it?
If you have your likes set to public view.
Keep up the good work, guys.
Take care, Carson.
Thanks.
If you can change on YouTube, you can set whether or not you want to display your likes, so you can keep it private.
Okay.
So it doesn't show.
I gotta be careful about that.
Okay.
Kind of stuff. I had to create a new Twitter account.
That sucks, man. I hate that.
Yeah.
Having to hide it like that.
It's just the family.
I used to, when I wasn't out to my family, everything was just like fake accounts and stuff, and like I've got like now that I'm out in the open, I don't give a crap. Like everybody knows me.
Well,
I'm.
It's such a great feeling too. Like I've been through this before, the whole being in the closet thing, and once you're like fully out, it is so freaking liberating. But I just don't think I can do it on this.
Yeah, I understand. I was the same way with when I was, going through basically my, because when I found out that basically, I mean, it came crashing down on me. I mean, I mean, when I basically finally accepted, well, I cannot believe this, because I finally ended up deciding to read the Bible cover to cover, and I'm like, I can't support this God. It's my whole world. I mean, I felt like my whole world was just ripped out from underneath me. I mean, you think the classical cartoon pulling the rug out from someone and they go flying backwards? That's how I felt. And then from there, I studied religion for a couple months, and then I finally realized, nope, they're all full of it. Then I was a deist for a while, and then became agnostic, and then finally an atheist.
It's amazing how common that journey is for me. I had something similar. I think Telltale, your mic might be muted, but he might not be talking.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. Yeah, I was talking to somebody.
But anyways, is there any final questions for Telltale that anyone has? Anything that you'd like us to ask him?
Are you coming to Faithless Forum next year?
Yeah, that's my plan, as long as they'll have me. Yep.
I'm sure it won't be a problem.
Nah,
of course, we'd love to have you. I think.
Wait, Telltale's going to be
I'm
there?
A board member.
I'm out.
We've got you on the board, so you better be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
But Faithless Forum 2 is going to be amazing. Also, if anyone here is in the Waco, Texas area, I'm going to be down there speaking at Baylor, a local group. Michael Walter sent one last super chat. Hey, thank you, by the way, very much. You've been very generous with the super chats. I hope I'm pronouncing the name Michael right, because it's spelled with a Y. He said, thanks for the stream and giving my weird questions your time. Absolutely. We're here for engagement, to talk with you guys, to chat, to ask questions, to help people out if we can. And, we really appreciate the engagement and the financial support as well. Telltale, thank you very much for being a part of this, and hopefully we'll have you back here sometime soon, and hopefully we'll see you at least at Faithless Forum 2, if not sooner.
For sure. So, anytime.
I think you and I were talking about maybe making a trip up to troll the Young Earth Creationist Museum.
Yes.
The Creation Museum.
We have to do it.
That sounds like
I want to do Ken Ham's deal or something else.
Ken Ham.
We should make
I'm getting a camera and bringing it with me.
Or organize
they throw you out
part of
for
Faithless Forum too.
You get kicked out for recording it.
My thing with that is, I don't mind getting kicked out as long as I get to keep the footage.
If
they
you
can
don't
pry
delete
that from my cold dead hands.
Yeah, if you don't delete it, I think they will. Basically, they'll have security escort you off the premises.
I'm not frightened by their security.
Yeah.
They can't throw me in jail. As long as I don't break any laws, I'm just going to film stuff and then keep it, or have hidden cameras and whatnot. But the one thing I hate though is giving them any kind of money. But at the same time, you got to have voices that kind of show how absurd it is and kind of counter the idiocracy of it all.
Yeah. But, well, if you want a free one, there's one up in Branson that's supposed to be free. They just have a donation thing.
Really?
Yeah,
it's Branson.
Yeah, just be careful on their Facebook page. If you post anything that's factual that disproves what they claim, you get blocked and comments deleted.
Well, there's that free marketplace of ideas for you that religion is all too well known for.
Yeah, I only know this because they posted something about the Bombardier Beetle, so I posted the Talk Origins article and the paper that backed up the Talk Origins article, and I got blocked immediately, and my comments vanished.
Yeah.
So,
anyways, thank you again to everyone who tuned in. Telltale. Appreciate you stopping by as always, and we'll see you guys at least next month with a future guest. And I'll be announcing. Make sure that you stay tuned to the Holy Koolaid Facebook page. I'll have the event there and everything for when the next one is. As always, it's open to patrons and for all of you guys to watch, and for patrons to join the conversation. Thank you guys to everyone who joined in. Kat, Brony, Sharni, Surus, Travis. Who am I forgetting or missing that joined?
Carlos or Carson, sorry.
Carson, and I think just that.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching, and have a fantastic night.
Have a good weekend.